So right now we are kind of raw dogging the prompts, which is saying, hey, if it's this, then go ask a human.
Yeah.
And so we built this just for that Instacart use case.
Hello, AI Tinkerers, and welcome to One Shot. This is our global stage where the true innovators come and share what they've learned with you, hopefully to enable your projects. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a big hackathon here in Seattle, sponsored by Anthropic, where we were exploring humans in the loop agentic systems. And so today we thought it'd be interesting to do an episode with the winner of the hackathon, Varun Pant. Varun, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Been here in Seattle for 5 years, working at AWS all that while. Joined as an IC, and then over the last 3 years, I've been a manager and wearing multiple hats.
Do you still code?
Yeah, I still code. That's how we won
Do
it.
they let
No,
you?
just kidding. Was that?
They let you?
They do. Yeah.
How about side projects?
Yeah, that's on the side on the weekends. In true tinkerer's fashion, I love tinkering, and so yeah, been a manager for 3 years. Held different hats: product manager, engineering manager, engineer, right? And then since this thing called ChatGPT came out, all of us have been captivated with what's going on.
Well, but I noticed long before ChatGPT, you were at Carnegie Mellon. You've done some robotics stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll rewind even before that. So back in undergrad, I had a fascination for space robotics. And so I participated in competitions like the University Rover Challenge, which is a robotics Martian rover that you develop, and then CanSat, which is a rocket descent mechanism. And so I was convinced I'm going to go into space exploration. But I came to CMU and I wanted to do research in lithium-ion batteries or space robotics, and I happened to take these courses of computer vision and machine learning, and really dive very deep into robotics. And end of first semester, I think I applied for another master's in School of Computer Science. And that was a really fun time. I learned a lot.
So you've got some background doing a lot of engineering and ML work actually before the ChatGPT, and then you said, I'm jumping right in. Do you do that kind of work there at Amazon as well?
Not exactly, no. I work on databases. So really middleware for databases. You can think of it a gateway to databases.
Yes, cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about human loop agents. We'll talk about your project. We'll dive right in. And we'll explore kind of what's interesting in there. Hopefully we'll see some of the code. And I really want to get at the learnings that happened during the 2-day hackathon that were discoveries, because we were all trying to kind of push the limits, right? But first, how do you define agents?
Yeah, I think agents are a system, and this system is a state machine, and this state machine is composed almost of it's a graph, right? And now you're moving across this graph, right? So you have these nodes and you have edges, computer science 101. And really the state is captured, right? And LLMs are central to this, because now instead of being very deterministic about what should be called and what not, you have that still, but now there's a level of these LLMs deciding what should be called and what shouldn't be. So that is an agent in my definition. And, agents are constantly evolving, as we are seeing.
What does it mean to be human in the loop? So in your definition, what is the loop and why is there a human?
I guess if we draw parallels to, self-driving cars, the way self-driving cars came about was we didn't have Waymo in the streets of SF from the get-go. We had a human who was actually sitting behind that wheel and who was, jumping in when the car made a wrong decision, right? Or when they determined it wasn't.
You're talking about the early days of developing Waymo.
Yes, or any self-driving car.
Yeah, okay.
And so I draw that parallel because that's exactly where we are right now with agentic related workflows.
Okay. So the human in the loop on Tesla full self-driving is when it tells me, prove that you're awake.
Right.
Or you have to intervene.
Yeah, that's a parallel to it.
Okay.
And so humans really, these systems are not 100% accurate. They're not 100% deterministic as well.
Of course.
So, which is why we we still need humans.
Okay, so they're involved in the decision-making process. A human-in-the-loop agent system is a system where you've explicitly modeled the conditions at which you're going to bring the human into it. Is that the right way to think of it?
Pretty much.
And-
You
and what-
decide.
and
Yeah.
what, so different from chat-based systems or co-pilot-based systems.
So I think co-pilots by definition are, they're there with you along the way all the time, right? You are in the driver's seat with co-pilots versus with human in the loop, you aren't in the driver's seat for the most part. It's the agents, but you have configured them to involve you whenever, an action needs a human input.
Is it just a point on where you are on the spectrum? And is it a fuzzy spectrum, or is there a hard divide? If I'm in a Tesla, well, and it's telling me, and I have to intervene, I guess that truly is autonomy, and then I'm taking over.
Right.
If I'm in a Waymo and it gets stuck, then I'm going to press a button and call support.
Right.
I guess those are both human in the loop agentic systems.
Technically, yes.
But a co-pilot system is just, it does one quick step and then it's waiting for me almost on every iteration.
Yeah.
So is it the time that's taken? How much time is autonomous, and therefore it's really just a spectrum, or?
I think it's a spectrum. I think, you have agents which are maybe doing 60 or 80% of the work and involving humans for the rest versus co-pilots, which are very much like 80 or 90% human driven.
Let's jump into your demo. What did you do? What did you build at the weekend? Kind of give me the elevator pitch or show me the demo.
Yeah. So let me talk about why we built what we built, and then I'll show the demo. So if you see right here.
Can you turn and hold it towards the camera a little bit?
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
Right
that's
here.
a CGM.
Right.
A little bit. CGM. What does CGM stand for?
So CGM is a continuous glucose monitor.
Okay.
And so there's a sensor which is kind of within my interstitial fluid, and it's giving constant readings every 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Tell me how many people are affected by the condition that a doctor would say you should have that.
Right. So I'm pre-diabetic, and that's how I start wearing this, just covered in my annual physical. But more than 1 in 3 Americans.
With 1 to 3 people, which is a lot. Okay.
Right. They are
All right.
pre-diabetic.
It's an extremely common thing. Okay, so you're starting with that kind of problem domain, and what is it that you built?
Imagine an agent, right? Almost a companion, right?
Yeah.
Which could give you insights based on this data. And it's not just this data, but it's also all of your health data, right? Your sleep, your exercise. You could go on to other biomarkers, but let's just
All right, so
continue to that.
there's a health monitor with a new signal, this set of data in that world,
Right.
versus the Aura Ring or your Apple Watch,
Right.
or something. Okay, and how is that what you built for the hackathon? What made it kind of human in the loop?
Those aren't, because there isn't one system where you can go ask questions, right? And get answers. So that's what we built. We built a system that has all of your data, and now it's smart enough to figure out, okay, I ate quinoa salad yesterday and for the past 7 days, and now, that really helps my blood sugar. So maybe I must eat that, right?
Yeah. Would it notice a spike and potentially ask you, hey, what did you eat, if you forgot to log it or something?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really looking at the data and working with you proactively.
Exactly. And the point is to drive behavioral change. And by having this proactively ask you, that's one way to do it.
Okay. Because this is Tinkerers, let's show the demo and then let's show the code. Let's see what you built. I'm just really curious now.
Sounds good. So here is the dashboard that you can see. And so this is live data. So this is Sean's data, who's been working with me on this. So Sean is also type 1 diabetic.
Okay.
And so we're really passionate about it. But
cool.
this is real-time data. It has a lag of about 15 minutes from his
wow.
CGM. Yeah, but this is real-time. So you can see right here, this is, 1613 and it's 1627 right now.
All right. So you have a time graph up and down as the glucose levels. And this is 1 day worth, not even just a few hours worth of data.
This is 24 hours worth of data. Right.
And then you've got markers there for like food and activities, I guess.
Yes. And so you have your food, you have, insulin shots when Sean is taking insulin shots here. What was the last exercise you did, or how much was your sleep, right? All of those things right here.
I'm curious, like, let's look at that spike that was like around 318 ish. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that hump there. What was that first? There was a food eaten at the low point.
Yep.
What was eaten there?
So right here you can see
Pizza.
pizza, which isn't surprising, right?
Right.
Spiked up your sugar.
if you've been diagnosed pre-diabetic, the doctor will kind of tell you generally what foods to avoid, right?
They do,
And
yes.
carbs, like, and pizza has sugar in the dough and flour, is bad. It spikes you.
In general, yes.
But it varies based on the
It
person.
varies,
Okay.
right? Everyone has a different genetic sequence,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are predisposed to certain things. Like I could be gluten intolerant, right?
And that went from 100 to 170, or actually, no, from like 20 or something to
So that went from
70.
yeah, that was at 78, 81, and it
all the way to
went
180 or
up
something.
until 196.
196. Okay. How significant is that range? And how would that, for example, for that same food, how much might that vary from one person to the next?
So it really depends. For some people, it might peak at 140, which is for folks who are not pre-diabetic or diabetic, that's the usual range that they're in.
Is there a number of which the doctor's going to say you're good under there, but over that you're kind of like taxing your organs or something?
It's called the A1C level. And so the A1C is an average of the blood glucose over the last 3 months.
Got it.
That's what they check in the annual physical.
Yeah. So when you go like once a year and they do a blood draw, you're only getting a 3-month snapshot and that's it. And it's not even going to see what a pizza did to you today.
Exactly.
And that's the whole idea of the continuous monitoring.
Right.
And I've heard people say, like, who've done this, that they figured out, like, I can eat ice cream, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But there's pizza I can't eat, or
Right.
vice versa. And
Exactly.
that the variance is quite large, which
Yeah.
is interesting. So you guys in a weekend did somehow got a hold of the data feed. You built,
on the back end, we have our own CGMs, right? They're pushing data, right? So we have a Lambda that's ingesting and then pushing it onto the back end.
Okay.
And then we're displaying it here. And then we're aggregating all of these
what was
events.
the back end? You used what for that?
We use Python for everything.
Okay. And what for the data stored as files or something?
We use Neon.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
They're one of the sponsors.
Yeah, one of the
great.
sponsors. Yeah.
Okay.
So we use Neon, and all of this data
Had
is
you
being.
used Neon before, or?
I had in while tinkering.
It basically, for those who don't know, it's basically within 5 minutes you could sign up and provision a database in the cloud, Postgres compatible, but also get auto scaling and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a backend with Python, you got a Neon powered Postgres database.
Yeah. So the front end is all React.
Okay. And what about for the LLMs and agentic workflows? How did you decide that?
Obviously, going back to our definition of what an agent is, like we wanted to define this graph workflow, right? Have these nodes and edges, conditional edges, on which once you receive an input, right? If I ask, which I'm going to show right here,
Yeah, please.
right? So if I ask this, hey, based on the data from, let's just say yesterday, what do I eat today for lunch, right? Such that my sugar does not spike. So what this is doing is, and I'll show the output in a bit, but what's this doing is it's calling this agentic workflow, and you can see right here, we've defined this query health data, right? So this is one of the tools that we have, right?
Yeah, cool.
So initially it goes to the LLM. It determines that, okay, the human is asking me about past data. So it figures out, okay, I must call this query health data, and then it's querying that data. And then you have other data there as well. So you also have, as you see here, your biomarker data. So this is real genetic test result data, not the genomic sequence. We're not going to expose that, obviously, but this is sort of the summary from it.
Got it.
And based on sort of Sean's profile, it's taking the genetic predisposition that he has and what he ate. And then you can see this is going over all of his glucose levels, right? All of the events.
Yeah.
And it's finally able to summarize what you should be eating.
How did it decide to do the health data query? Was there other tools you built that it could have invoked instead of that one?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have multiple tools. So for example, this is the first thing, but imagine right after this, you're like, hey, I want to go and order something, right? And that's the second thing where I feel like these agents are really going to help, which is we have integrations with Instacart and all of these food delivery services. And so it knows when you ask it, hey, I want to get me this meal, right, for the next 1 week.
Is the agentic part the idea? Like, did you build another kind of autonomous thing that's running in the ambient, kind of like while you're not here on the website, and it's going to reach out and maybe order something from Instacart, or like, tell me more about the agent aspect of this.
Yeah. So the idea is that as soon as it detects, right, that proactively, hey, like over the last 1 week, because of certain things, your sugar has been high, right? The next time, say you have a workflow that has a weekly meal ordering thing, the next time that gets triggered, it will call the agent. The agent will know not to order the same pizza crust for you and replace that with something else.
You talked about the once a year A1C test that gives you a rough 3-month average. So that's not going to tell you if pizza or ice cream at all.
Yeah.
And then the doctor, think about the agent in that system's the doctor, probably review your file 10 minutes before you walk into the office. And based on last year's data, the conversation you have, which lasts 6 minutes, and you'll get some course grain recommendations versus this. This is exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened to me. So last year, my A1C was 5.7, which is right about at the normal range. And this year it was 5.9. And so I was like, wait, I have no idea what made this go up.
Right. 5.7, 5.9. Why should people care?
Yeah. So for one, anything above, I think it's 6.4 is diabetic, type 2 diabetes. And even being in the pre-diabetic range for a long time. So having a high blood sugar can cause your organs are basically working overtime, right?
Yeah. I read about some of that stuff, the limb amputations,
Right.
kidney failure, stroke, blindness. You're at an increased risk of heart disease and stroke
Yes.
if you have these elevated levels, period. So extremely common. Nobody's getting kind of real-time management of it. The dire consequences potentially. And then what were the existing solutions like?
So this thing is vended by Dexcom, and Dexcom manufactures this great devices. But I found that the app didn't have that layer of insights, real-time insights that I wanted, right? So we started building this for that. And none of the other apps right now have those real-time insights.
This was an Anthropic hackathon. I'm assuming you used Claude.
Yes, I did switch the Anthropic models between Haiku and Sonnet. And there was
A big difference there.
yes, there was a big difference there.
Actually, like what?
So, for example, its pattern recognition was way off, right, for Haiku. We had to go and add additional prompts to go tell it that, hey, if this happened, right, like it was paying too much weight on certain things that were too old versus something that was too new.
Did you use any agent frameworks to help with execution?
Yeah, so we used LangChain
Okay.
and LangGraph.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Can
so
you show the code?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
so so this is the So you can see this is a Flask API just running. Okay. So this is the main agent file, right? Agent.py.
Yeah.
And we were trying prompt caching here, but really don't need it right now. So you have effectively a few, as I said before, you have these nodes and you have your conditional edges, right? And so ask human, right? These are the tools. So you have query health data, you have get the latest genetic test data, and then you can make an order from Instacart or Uber, stuff like that, and you can add an event, right? So ask human, so the flow is this, right? You go type something, it goes to the LLM first, right? The agent goes to call model. That's the first one, right? And then call model determines, okay, what is the question and what must I do? And then based on that, the agent decides, okay, I need to make a tool call to this, right? To query health data, which is what we saw in the chatbot, right? And then it goes, makes that tool call, and then it comes back and it says, okay, is that done? So this is the should continue. Should I continue with this, or does that answer the question, right? Or do I need human input, which is ask human?
And that's the humans in the loop.
And that's the
piece of
human
it.
in the loop.
How would it decide that?
So, for example, we've
The one-shot query from the LLM is actually going to decide if it needs a human in this case?
yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. And can you show the prompts? I'd love to see what exactly the criteria was for that.
So your job is to find relevant data, take appropriate action items from that. If a user asks what they should eat, you should observe trends from the past and their glucose levels to suggest similar food items. And right, we're saying fetch data from the past 2 weeks and today's data is
Okay. And where was the part where it says, or ask a human?
So that is this one right here. So for example, if I say make an Instacart order, right? We actually ripped out this workflow, but in the hackathon, you had this sort of prompt which said, hey, if it is a order, right, then you must go ask the human, right? Or if it's not clear what the past data is, then you must go ask the human to input that event data, right?
For the food ordering scenarios, there you had a more, because it's not just data analysis. You assumed, hey, we got that if we have the data,
Right.
or we can't. The human's not going to help. But for a food order, we actually want to be careful because we're spending money and stuff.
Correct. And so, which is why we used, and I'm trying to find the file. So right here, for example, um, right, this is an example tool calling agent. And so we are using human layer here,
Okay.
also one of the sponsors. So,
Oh yeah.
so human layer has this, think of it as a hook. And every time you need to invoke the human layer can help you with that. So what we did was, so right here, you see this.
Yep.
And so this is all of the,
Oh, so they're just going to provide an API that says, hey, allow me to ask humans. And then they're like, cool, I'll help you configure Slack or wherever your humans are, your support tool workflow, et cetera.
yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That makes it, that's convenient. Okay. So you actually hooked up Slack and your team was the humans some of the time.
right.
And the different kinds of humans, right? In this case, like if this was a real product or something, you'd have the human, patient. You might have like escalation to their doctor. You have the nutritionist maybe that they've consulted with, or and you got the Uber Eats people, clearly, right? They could all be interacting with the system. They don't understand your system or how it was built,
Right.
but they can be lassoed in, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's so right now we are kind of raw dogging the prompts, which is saying, hey, if it's this, then go ask a human.
Yeah.
And so we built this just for that Instacart use case, right? When
Yeah.
you make an order on your meal that based on your previous data. But funny enough, I was actually on a Zoom call yesterday with Dex, who's the founder of Human Layer.
Oh, yeah.
And so my ask for him was to add a Twilio integration.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, obviously, they're not, no one's going to go on Slack. You're probably going to use a text message.
Yeah.
And this works both ways. So the idea is that human in the loop is you when you're making an order, right? And human in the loop is also your nutritionist, right? Because the next time that it's suggesting something that, we determine is not safe, we can involve the nutritionist via text message.
Yeah.
And so that is I guess the other order, which is how do you build, and this is something I've been thinking about, which is how do you build the right guardrails here?
I mean, if the alternative is, hey, I'm on the edge of diabetes, but the system gives me once a year course grain, and then I'm kind of on my own anyways. If I can get this virtual agent team that's like looking after me in real time every day and doing reach outs, and in certain cases, hey, loop in the doctor, I log into my chart, send a message if it's important enough. Did you think much about those different roles and how they would interact in terms of the human in the loop? I mentioned doctor, nutritionist, end user. It sounds like you did if you're asking him about Twilio.
Yeah. So from the LangGraph perspective, those are just, different nodes that they must be, you can configure them as tools, right, in the tool definition or as another node, and the agent can determine when to go call them, right?
Yeah.
But the question is like, how do you tell the agent when should you invoke the nutritionist or when should you invoke the clinician, right? So like taking a step back, like what these models are outputting right now, it's not deterministic, right? So I could easily trick it to tell me to, give a recommendation to actually consume 100 grams of candy.
You could be a kid whose parents have told them use this,
right,
and hack it to get Uber to deliver candy.
I guess
Right.
The simplest way is like if you had data that was bad, where you could, because you are the one who in a lot of cases can change the data, right? If I had consistent data that said candy and the blood sugar was like low, then it's going to realize that okay, like candy is not spiking your blood sugar, right?
Right. So you can't, that's interesting. In this particular domain, you can't just kind of specify a guardrail based on a food type. You have to specify it in this abstract way based on the data,
right,
and a correlation that you don't have yet. You have to learn with the actual specific person.
Right.
Have you had experience with agentic workflow systems other than LangGraph?
I did play around with Bedrock agents, and I was kind of doing a cursory lookup on Crew AI, which is another company that does it. But so far, I've only used LangGraph.
What did you think of it?
I think some of those simplify the experience a lot. And I think, there's no one size fits all. I think it's going to be dependent on what you're trying to do. Yeah, but
If I
thi-
said you had to build this whole thing and just write it yourself, how much more work would that have been? Or
I think just without any of these graphs, like it would have taken much longer for sure.
so they have a way for you to kind of pop up a level and describe a higher level thing
Right.
simply, and they're going to translate that into a lot of stuff that you'd have to do.
Yeah. But again, like if you need very nuanced controls and right, like then you're better off probably using this. So depends. Yeah.
Probably using.
Line graph.
Oh, really? If
Yeah.
you need the more nuanced
Yeah.
controls.
That's what I observed. I mean,
Versus doing it yourself, or versus another framework that you looked at.
versus any other framework, right?
Oh,
Because some of these frameworks, I think they take a lot of these abstractions away. They make it easy for you. But
Oh, you lose control.
yeah.
So with lane graph, you're not losing control.
That's my experience so far, but I need to go deeper on some of these other ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. What were the biggest challenges, I guess, that you ran? Was there anything during the weekend where you were hitting your head against the wall trying to get anything to work or figure out how to get the thing to behave?
A lot of us were playing around with Langgraph, especially, right? Like for the second or third time. And so just understanding there is a lot of ramp up needed to understand exactly what to use and how to use it.
Okay.
So just getting that to work, I think, took the longest time.
How much of your code at the hackathon was written by hand and how much was written by Claude?
Well, I don't know. We had a team of 6. So the code I wrote was about 60 to 80% LLM generated. Yeah.
Is it a matter of convenience that you're outsourcing it or speed? Are you going faster now?
I for sure am going faster. Yes, I was a coder before. But I don't have to think about all of these structural things, right? Like I think about the system design and then I go and think about, okay, what should be the functions? And then I just go and get the LLM to give me the skeleton of it.
Yeah.
Or pretty much like 80% of it.
For stuff that's like in my single browser view, then it's excellent. But for things beyond that, I find I have to throw out lots and lots of code because it just didn't even follow instructions.
But with O1 preview, I've been having a pretty decent experience there.
Oh,
Yes.
I tried that.
Yeah. So, as of this morning, I mean, we've been building on this, right? And so, for example, I'll show you right here, you can go and add this event right here.
Okay.
And so
that whole UI was soup to nuts 01.
Yeah.
I want to drill into that because what I was saying is, I might provide 3 or 4 view classes and 3 or 4 model things and definitions from schemas and backend code logic,
right?
Like that's existing in my code base, and say build this new feature that uses that stuff in that way. Yeah, getting the answer, but not following directions or developing a bunch of code that I already had that I pointed it at that already existed, a new version of it that I don't want in my code base for obvious reasons. Do you have the experience with 01 that's analogous there that says that's not an issue?
Yes. So as of last night, actually, I was adding, so this generic thing that I showed you, that table didn't exist before, right? And all of that was me asking O1 preview to, hey, go and, this is what I want. Give me all the SQL statements. I'm going to be using this database. I want you to give me all of it with the code, and it was able to do it.
Cool. Yeah. What's your IDE of choice?
So right now I'm using Cursor, but I'm a new Cursor user. I've only been using it since the hackathon.
I love if I'm working on a big piece of code, I might select a bit of it and then hop over and chat just about that. I want you to refactor this or whatever. I love that it can do that and bring it back in.
Yeah.
That's convenient.
One thing for me is also the cost. And I think there is a case here that I haven't looked into how Cursor is sort of indexing your entire code base.
Yeah.
Because I think that for sure is going to take up a lot of input tokens. But I do use O1 still for very specific, debugging, for example, right? I just copy and paste
paste over to a different session.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to go over and look at the browser preview of the UI that I'm working on and just automatically know what I'm talking about there. It would do a better job. And I think obviously that's coming.
Yep.
And I want to be able to talk to it too.
We moved over to Next from vanilla React and we've been using V0, which is great for that. Cursor for the IDE along with O1. So it's just so many bits and pieces there.
Interesting.
The other thing is also voice. I've been thinking about voice because obviously something like this, right? It just if you have a proactive agent, then you almost want someone who prods you, like you ate a meal, go take a walk, right? So I'm not sure what the best modality is for that kind of health companion for yourself, but uh, the voice model that
Sure.
OpenAI just dropped, that's going to be pretty interesting too.
Cool. Are you going to continue this project? Is the team still working? It sounds like you did some work on it this weekend.
Yes, so we still are, and obviously me and Sean are our own, first users. So we are the beta users, and a lot of stuff you see here, right? Like, well, all of this, the data right here, we're actively monitoring it. Next, what we're building is, so if you see this, right, you can add event, you can delete event. This is all like basic stuff. But what you can also do is based on, say, like a handful of walnuts. I want to eat that right now, right? I can actually click on predict,
Oh, cool.
and it will, so this is going to the LLM, and the LLM is again making that query health data call and figuring out, okay, like what's happened in the past, how will that affect your blood sugar right now? And so it says it will most likely result in a slight increase because it's seen this in the past, right? And it's giving you that reasoning, which is, I think, for something like healthcare application, really important to give that reasoning
Sure.
versus just being prescriptive.
Very cool.
Well, there's one more thing I didn't talk
Yeah,
about.
please.
So I talked about this. So this is just a vanilla sort of explorer dashboard, which helps you kind of drill down. But the idea is that you'd be able to go chat with the agent on, hey, like, why did this happen, right? Why did that happen? And then this all ties up into your daily workflow. So I didn't talk about vision, but you can, so you really can upload a photo here. And we had this for the hackathon
saw
too,
that, yeah. The
right?
hackathon
And
was
then
awesome.
you say analyze, and then it's just calling the anthropic vision model, and then it's spitting out these numbers.
Yeah, cool.
I haven't done any benchmarking to see how good that is.
How would you productionize a system like this feature? Do you set up, do you do evals driven,
It's all,
architecture? I mean, not in a hackathon, but how would you approach it?
we ask it questions, and then we're seeing what it does. Like the haiku example I mentioned where it hallucinated, we then went and added some stuff to make sure it doesn't do that, right?
So you raw dog the queries, kind of do that with the result, but then go and add something somewhere.
Right.
What is that system? What are you using for that?
Oh, just add prompts,
Are you
right?
just adding prompts in a test harness that you wrote?
Yeah, so you add prompts. So for example, it hallucinated in this pattern,
Yeah.
and so you go tell it that, hey, when you see this, you must not pay more attention to, right,
But
like
you
this
can't
setup.
just add that into your prompt without wondering, did it affect some of my previous results somehow because of, it's the pink elephant effect where it sort of, it may change your other results. So do you have a separate, like a harness of evals that you'll run, and then who looks in it? How do you evaluate those?
We don't right now, but that would be ideal to have that. I don't know if there are frameworks that allow you to do that right off the bat.
Just how do I assess the quality of my prompt infrastructure, my quality of my, the models may change or upgrade, and how do I regression test essentially against everything that I thought was working?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's evolving.
Yeah. V0, like my main priority right now is to have those guardrails,
I can't
because
believe in a hackathon project you didn't have the guardrails.
I
system set
know,
up.
yeah.
Come on. No,
It's,
I'm kidding.
but I mean, to the point of guardrails, I've been thinking about this. Is it just you kind of have to pick and choose, right? You don't want a O1 being your guardrail for everything, but you maybe want a generic classifier on PII data, for example, right? And then how do you evolve that, like for a use case like this, right? That's very interesting. And the other thing is, right, with the human in the loop, at what point do you really escalate it to a clinician, for example? So I spoke to a clinician the other day, and their worry was, hey, like, CGM is not the only thing, right? They prescribe medications like GLP-1, Ozempic. So if someone's losing weight really fast, right, and some measurement drops, like how I want to know about it, right? So you need those escalation mechanisms based on the data.
But this was a great example of like not just a hackathon project that's innovative and creative and cool, but meaningful real world impact. So great job.
Yeah, thank you. If anyone's going through this or interested in this, there's a lot of research going on in this.
And where can they follow the project or contact you?
Right. Yeah. Contact me if you're interested, or go to smartnourish.co. This domain may change, but it allows you to sort of sign up and join the waitlist.
Cool.
Yeah, this is more than 1 in 3 Americans. So
Thank you, Varun. And also thank you for, I don't know if you've been a long time AI Tinkerers member in Seattle, and you started the Bengaluru chapter.
Yeah.
So that was awesome when you were there for a couple months and
Yeah.
still going strong and
Yeah.
amazing. So look forward to collaborating more on that front too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks a
Thanks, Joe.
lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for having
Thanks.
me.